Hey everybody, flying in here a little late today because these damn kids. Anyways, we are homeschooling this semester because of COVID and the Delta variant. So, my house is chaos. So I hit the bricks. I'm out here on these streets trying to talk to y'all about cultural appropriation and fandoms. Y'all, it's a real problem. It is. Because I don't know if you watched this week, but you should have watched this week. If you watched this week, you would have seen where, you had Q and you had the rest of the gang going out here talking about this problem that we have of cultural appropriation, of people in fandoms actively going out and looking for what the people of color are doing, specifically black people, so most of the time, and actually stealing that content and putting it on their channels. Not even joking, y'all, it's happening. And so one of the things that I wanted to do today is to talk about cultural appropriation in fandoms and, let you guys know what it looks like. Nashville Hot Chicken. Bet y'all didn't know that there's some cultural appropriation there. And how to spot it and how to, call it out. Because it's a real problem. It's a real problem. So, and I also, I wrote the book called Questioning Cultural Appropriation. It's been out for a few years. You need to get a copy. It's actually really good at breaking down the parts, what I'm going to do today. And so you guys will be able to do the work yourselves. So let's jump to it. One of the things that we've seen in this era of social media is a lot of, content being created by black and brown creators. But then the creators who end up going viral are usually white creators. TikTok. Take TikTok, for example. It happens all the time. There will be a new song come out, and the creators will invent a dance. Black creators, they'll invent a dance. It'll go everywhere. But the people who make the 6 million views, who are called onto Jimmy Kimmel, who are given these influencing deals because they made up this dance, are usually white creators. And not even usually, it's always white creators. And the thing with that is, first of all, you stole something that wasn't yours, and you put it on your channel and perpetrated it as yours. Then when you go on Jimmy Kimmel and you have to do the damn dance, your version of it is so watered down that it's not even the same. It doesn't have the same flavor. It doesn't have the same anything as the original dance. So we end up with a very whitewashed version of something that, nobody asked you to do in the first place. The reason for that is really simple. It goes back to white discomfort, the talk we had a few weeks ago. People are comfortable. They're more comfortable learning something from a smiling blonde-haired white girl than they are from, a black, teenager with dreads in his hair, or a curvy black girl. They're more comfortable with that smiling blonde face. And so they will go and watch her video, and they will go and try it from her because they think that the black kids are too intimidating, too aggressive, too insert stereotype here. That white discomfort pushes people toward, and that like drives most of the cultural appropriation out there. And I'll tell you why in just a second. But when you do this, then you're making this white creator, think that, oh, she has the better video. She doesn't have the better video. You're just too intimidated by the black kids to go and actually watch it and get the right stuff. So that's a problem. And it shows up, when it shows up in fandoms, that's when you get this sort of erasure that a lot of people have been seeing with black and brown fans and fandoms all over. And no matter what your fandom is, you get black and brown creators who will create something unique, something genuine, something that honors their whatever the scope of the fandom is. And they will put it out there genuinely thinking that they're part of this fan community. And as a part of this community, they are able to, they can share with their friends and do so without worrying about, stealing or, not even thinking that anything bad is going to happen if they put it out there. You're sharing because these are supposed to be your people. They know you, they hear you. Y'all are in this together, right? No. Then you get white creators within the fandom who will take this same element and they will try to reproduce it and can't, because they're not the original creators. They don't know what the original muse was. They can't recreate that original passion. So will not have the same effects. But they will still take it, call it theirs, put it out in the world, and claim all responsibility. Now, because now you can go out there, as black, brown person, you can go out there and you can say, hold on. This is not yours, it's mine. I made this. Me and my folks, we made this. You didn't. The second you do, though, your voice is drowned out. It's, let's not politicize the fandom. Let's not do the infighting. Let's, we're in this together, not against each other. We need to come together and help one another. And it's not about who gets the credit. It's not about who gets the credit. I bet you've heard that a lot. But it is. Because if it wasn't about credit, why would they steal your shit in the first place? Why do they need your shit in the first place if it's not about the credit? Remember last time asking the right questions? Yeah, that's that. So this is cultural appropriation. And it's the thing about it is people think that cultural appropriation is, white girls wearing, braids like mine. It's deeper than that. Cultural appropriation actually has a power dynamic where you have this culture that has a dominant presence, that they have this white discomfort element that, we will always be comfortable seeing, some button down white dude giving us information, rather than listening to someone who looks like me. People will not be comfortable. There are people who will not be comfortable. And it's just the way that the culture is. So when you get someone who looks like the button down white guy saying the same thing I do, that you have to look at what that does. There's a power dynamic. His words and everything he does, it drowns out what I say. It erases basically everything I've done, because you no longer see this video. You won't see this video. This video will go down to the dregs of YouTube. But the guy who took it and took my words, he will be elevated and praised and probably will go viral off of stolen stuff. Now, how does that do anything? Power dynamic is one thing. You have a culture that's dominant, a culture that has the power to drown out other cultures. So when you have this dominant culture and you have a culture, black culture, black women, me, and they've created something. They're the minority culture. And then do you see how one taking over the other? It's a no-win situation. It is. But it goes deeper than that, because once the dominant culture takes over, they cannot recreate that original spark, that original passion. They cannot give you that same original flavor. So they have to change it. Which ends up being whitewashing. No, it's not subjective, actually. This is totally not a subjective thing, because because there are actual elements that are removed from the thing when it's taken away and used by the dominant culture. You can actually look at the elements that are removed, and you can actually track them and write them down. That is actual fact. It is not subjective. This is not based on opinions. This is not about politicized. I hate that people say this about cultural appropriation, because we have active examples. And get the book, because I write them down, and I'll give you some. We have active examples of the harm that cultural appropriation does. And that harm is, it erases whole cultures. So when they got this element and they've whitewashed it, they've made it to where it's easier for them to duplicate. It's easier for them to put out to the people. It's easier for people, for their target audience to digest. It's removed elements that the culture has put in. And when that happens, you start to get people looking at the appropriated thing as the actual, and the original as something other, as something exotic, as something that's new, as something that's niche. When it's the original, it is the original, it is the actual thing, it is the actual element. After a while, that original, no one's going there. No one's watching the video. No one's doing that original dance. Everybody's doing this new thing. So what happens when on the internet, when you're not doing a thing, you're not watching a thing, poof, it's gone. That's called erasure, folks. Erasure. The harm of cultural appropriation is erasure. Let me give you an example. When we talk about Native Americans, you guys have heard about, you've seen the Native American Sweat Lodge, where, in movies, you've seen it in like commercials, TV shows. There are actual sweat lodges you can go to that are like at spas. You go in, it's like a sauna. You're supposed to do this spiritual journey experience, to come reflect upon yourself, to it's like a mindfulness thing sometimes. Other times it's a health thing. You sweat out toxins is what they say in the brochures. This is attributed, the concept of the sweat lodge was taken from specific Native American groups. It was a specific spiritual thing, spiritual element of their culture. It was more than just sweating in a hot ass room. It was more than getting the toxins out. It was more than just, it's more than just, mindfulness. It was a way to spiritually connect with the ancestors, and not all Native American tribes did it. They didn't. Only certain ones. But because dominant Western culture, American culture, entertainment, Hollywood got a hold of it. First of all, they got a hold of it and attributed it to all Native American cultures, which is a lie. So now you're saying all of them do it instead of the few that did. Then you're taking away key elements, plucking it out and throwing them aside, to where the sweat lodge they do now in these spas that they charge like tens of thousands of dollars for is not even close to the original one. And the original concept, it doesn't exist. It only exists in pockets where these cultures actually still perform it. And they don't perform it for the public. They perform it for themselves. So you've actually erased all the history, the importance, and the spiritual significance of this practice this culture had. No, it's not about, it's not, okay, so you are really, really hell-bent on trying to trivialize this. Duplicating is not a thing when you've got a power dynamic. And there's never straight duplication. Okay, let me give you an example of duplication. So someone, white girl, gets braids like mine. Kim Kardashian did a couple years ago, got box braids. All over Allure, Glamour, all that. You know, she was setting a trend. She was hot. She was, you know, she got money for, you know, sitting and modeling pictures of herself in the braids. So why did a couple years later they have to put out the Crown Act to protect people like me from losing their jobs for having this in their hair? Let me go one further. Why did Purdue University almost fire me because they said I needed to be more approachable to my students, and my hair made me to where I was too aggressive and my students could not connect with me. My hair. They said, well, maybe you can change some things about yourself. Maybe it's your hair, your clothes. You change some things, then your students can approach you. And, you know, the talks they kind of ramped up and got more heated from there. So if it's a simple case of duplicating, why does Kim get paid and get accolades and get the front page of several magazines, and I get my ass almost fired? That's not duplicating my man. That's cultural appropriation. That's damage and that's harm. So, back to this. Let me give you another example. Right? The thumbnail that's going to go on this has chicken on it. Fried chicken. I was not trying to be funny. I was not trying to do, you know, black people and chicken thing. But that is like a key, actually a recent cultural appropriation problem. Look up Nashville Hot Chicken. Nashville Hot Chicken. So there was this family in Tennessee. They had these diners. And so they decided to serve this chicken dish that had been in the community since the black community there had been around in Nashville. It's something that was a staple. Well, this black family, we've got a diner, let's put our dish in there. They did. It was popular in those diners. It became one of their popular dishes. But it didn't hit worldwide fame until Kentucky Fried Chicken did a Nashville Hot Chicken dish. They claimed it as their recipe. They claimed it, but it wasn't as hot. It didn't have the same elements and spices. It was actually blander. It was actually less spicy. So you not only stole or, you know, duplicated a dish that came from a community of black people. You washed it down to where it's not like the original. You put it out internationally. Now I bet you can go places in this world, even in this country, and ask about who did the Nashville Hot Chicken. They'd say KFC. So what did you do? That's erasure. That's erasure. You've erased this family, this community. You've erased their connection to this chicken dish. You have. And it's not about credit. It's not about credit. It's not about profiting. And yeah, that sucks. Are you really? Okay. Anyways. Yeah, that sucks. You're going to tell a mom of 6 that she gets fired because of her hair. That sucks. Oh boy. Oh boy. You're going to tell a whole ass community of black people that if they're a meal that they developed that became something that their community produced, that if it gets taken by a national chain and now no one knows the connection or even the real flavor of the dish, that sucks. Privilege is a hell of a drug. We'll just say that and I'll move on. But do you see the erasure? You must see the erasure. And even saying that something like that just sucks, you're erasing, you right there are helping dismiss an element of a culture. You are. There's so many examples in this country. There was a story that was pretty funny a couple years ago about these white women from Oregon who took a trip down to New Mexico, and they went to this reservation, and they saw these women making a certain type of tortilla. It's not the usual. It's something different they saw, and they're like, oh, this is good. People where we are would love this. Let us, learn how to make this. And so the women of the reservation taught them. They're gracious. Like I said, in Fandoms, you want to learn how I do this thing? We're all family. Why wouldn't I teach you? They taught them how to do it. These women went and opened a food truck back in Oregon. Were making money hand over fist selling tacos and burritos and with this special tortilla recipe. Did not acknowledge where it came from. Did not credit the women. And their recipe was different. So you not only stole it, you've erased the original where it comes from. Y'all, okay, so I don't think y'all getting this. When you have these cultures that are taking things from, when you have something like something that you guys can understand, like Walmart, their Always Save brand, they've got an Always Save brand in just about everything. They can make an always, actually, you put anything on their shelf, they can make an Always Save, generic, a great value, not Always Save, great value, a great value version of it in a hot ass second. What if every time they made a great value version, they took the original out? Pretty soon, all you will have is the great value version. Now, some of you who have tried the generics, the generics are not always the same. There's some difference. It's not. Some things you just can't beat the original. But if Walmart is where we get this stuff in this scenario, and Walmart is not carrying the originals anymore, how will you ever know that the original was better? How will you ever know what the original was? Furthermore, where's your variation in the store? Where's your variation? Everything is okay. Now, it's okay. It's just, I just don't like when people just kind of trivialize this, because it does a lot more damage than, I'm just responding to comments, everyone. It does a lot more damage when we just sit around and we let it happen. But because, like I'm saying, we have no variation. There's nothing. There's no part of me in my culture. If I'm not from the Nashville Hot Chicken, community, you don't see any of my culture in the store anymore. I love the Cholula hot sauce, and there's also a brand of tortilla chips that I love that comes from Mexico. Well, if I have to get the great value, that the authenticity of the one I usually get is gone. You don't even remember that flavor. So you've just erased the contributions of all the people of color. And you've made everything in that store, everything available to the people cannot get access to the original, because you have to, to get the authentic Nashville hot chicken, you got to go to Nashville. You just do. Who has access to that? Some of you are listening from outside of American borders. You're like, some of you are across, oceans. How can you get to Nashville to get the hot chicken? I bet you got a KFC close. Do you see what I'm saying? It erases the contribution. This world, it works, and community works. Community works because you have different people with different ideas coming together and sharing and offering those things and building on one another to create a common space, a safe space for that comment a common good. You have people coming to a fandom to create a safe space for, you know, people who love these characters or love these books or love, you know, there's fandoms of cars, and there's you know, you have people who come together because they love this thing. When they make a contribution to that fandom and it's taken by the dominant culture and redone, you're erasing their contribution. So now everything in that fandom has been whitewashed. And now everything in that fandom looks the same. And now everything in this fandom is basically not reflective of the people in it anymore. It's not reflective of the majority anymore. Because let's face it, in a lot of fandoms, that you have international fans that are the bulk of the fandom population, and they are ignored, and in this sense erased. It's so messed up. It's so messed up. And that I think that we need to be calling it out. Now, let me get to that. That's what we need to do. So when you see it, you can see it by saying, okay, so I know when you get on a timeline, I know you've seen these conversations like, oh, such and such is doing this stream, this new thing on their stream that I think is pretty cool. And then somebody comes to you and is like, oh, no. Somebody else did that. I saw this Brazilian stream, and they did it this way and this way and this way. That's cultural appropriation right there happening. Whenever you see someone in the fandom, you know, doing something that you know in this world, you know that there is no way in hell that they would have thought up by themselves. Y'all know. There's no way that they could have gotten that idea. Because that idea came from your culture. Your culture, your people. Yes. Okay, we'll get to Gru Crew, his comment. But if it came from your culture, your people, and you're like, there's no way in hell you would have found that unless you would have seen it on my page or my whatever, or my TikTok or whatever. That's cultural appropriation. So what do? We call it out. We call it out loudly and unapologetically. Tongue-tied. You get loud. You put it everywhere. And don't apologize. Make them answer for it. And if you have to, take them to court. Because outright stealing, this comment is right. Let me see if I can get I couldn't get my comments working early. Let me see if I can get them. Here we go. Outright stealing is against the law in several countries. I think in just about every one. If you steal something somebody else created, I mean, you can threaten, or you can just do it. But a lot of us don't have the money for that. So what I suggest is calling it out. And when you see someone saying, hey, this stream stole my shit, okay, like and retweet. Boost them. Because the only thing that's going to do is to ensure that this does not happen again. You need to make your fandom a place where you let it be known that we're about sharing. And if you want to learn something, I can teach you. And if you want to use something of mine, ask my permission and then credit me. But until that the comments have got me again. But you know, if you credit me, but until you do, you've stolen it. You've culturally appropriated it, and it's mine. Claiming ideas can be appropriated. Probably a strap. I mean, if you want to boycott, that's fine. But I think that what I'm talking about, this is in context of fandoms. When you see something that's culturally appropriated, yes, boycott. I mean, boycott is the heaviest. It is the language that businesses understand. And if you're fighting a big business that has taken an idea and appropriated it, hell yeah, because it's actually gotten results. I mean, when Kim Kardashian had her braids in the papers, people got so mad. They all sounded off. Black Twitter drug, a couple of those magazines. They put out an apology. Didn't do it again. So, well, didn't do that particular thing. They always do something else. But they listen to boycotts. They listen to outrage, Twitter outrage. And that's what we have to do. If we have to. I mean, we have to be loud. And we have to activate. But until we do that, this will always happen. And it's been happening really, really rampant in a lot of fandoms lately. A lot of them. A stream will figure out, okay, well, let's do this thing. Audiences love it. And then another stream will do it, not saying, oh, I watched this guy do it, and he had good luck with it. So, if you really like this, go see somebody else. Go see this other person, as well. It takes that just a few seconds to give credit. Just a few seconds to reach out. And if you're not doing that, then you're cultural appropriating and you're stealing, and you are. So just cut it out. But cut it out, and if they won't cut it out, then we call it out. Simple as that, guys. Simple as that. Remember, there is a power dynamic. If you have someone that's from a dominant culture stealing from someone who's from a culture that is less powerful, whose voice is not as strong, then that is cultural appropriation, and they need help. There needs to be something done. There is damage done by cultural appropriation. There's whitewashing. There's erasure. There is, effectively changing a cultural element to where no one will ever know what the original looks like. Ever. I give an example in my book about a certain set of blankets that this Native American tribe created, that was taken over. You have to read them, but we won't ever know what the originals look like because they no longer exist. And there are several elements, especially when you talk about indigenous cultures. There are several elements that indigenous cultures have that you will never know what the original looked like. You will never get to experience the original because due to cultural appropriation, the original does not exist. So, I mean, if you want to look at it in a larger scale, when you look at restaurants, Taco Bell has put how many authentic American, Mexican and South American restaurants out of business? How many? Millions. There's damage. And then erasure. It's a permanent consequence. There's no coming back from that. So you spot it by, looking at your fandom, by listening to people when they say, hey, this is stolen, by looking at content similarities. And you question it. You ask these questions. You have to ask these questions and call it out loudly. And on the timeline. Because social media, everybody hates cancel culture. But everybody responds to cancel culture too. They do. So that's my talk for today. I'm cutting it short because I have children who are trying to get my attention. But yeah. Cultural appropriation, it's rampant in fandoms, and until we stop it, it's gonna keep going. It's gonna keep going. We need to crush it and get back to the community that shares, that credits, and don't let them tell you credit doesn't matter, because again, if credit didn't matter, they would not be stealing from someone else. But yeah, get back to sharing, crediting. And using our culture to build something bigger and better, for us in the fandoms. So that's all I got for Friday night. Thanks, Gru and Cup of Malik, Hercules, and Q for sitting with me, and everybody else who's out there. Thanks for coming in and giving your opinion and giving me a moment to kind of clarify certain things. The next episode will be in 2 weeks. When I'm going to take a week in between, and we'll come back with another topic. If you guys have topics you would love for me to talk about, dip into the comments of this video and let me know. Or hit me up on all my platforms. I'm Jonita L. Davis everywhere. You can find me at, the Black Cape. On Tuesdays, I'm at the HCA Long Box, the Hollywood Critics Association Long Box, talking about comics and comic-related properties and entertainment. Moldiversity, I'm in the background of everything they do. I'm on The Mess Thursday nights with Mike and sometimes Avia and sometimes the rest of the crew, depending on what we're talking about that's messy. So come find me and tell me if there's something that you don't understand, or you're like, oh, I'm seeing this problem, nobody's talking about it. Bring it to me. I will talk about it. I will flesh it out, and I will let people, I will understand. I will help people understand why this is a problem and why we need to be more loud and more unapologetic about talking about it. So, until next time. Bye, guys.